Wrong
Hello.
screen. We're tiny. There we go.
Pressing your head, pressing your head. That is one of my favorites. I have a picture of my kids, and my son's like up front, and Samantha, my oldest, is
Way in the back.
way in the back, and she literally has him like this in her hand, and she's like, it's the greatest picture. It's absolutely adorable. So, welcome. We are going to fill in the blank.
Right.
What are we going to do? Fill in the blank.
We're going to fill in the, I don't know, you choose.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't it feel like it's...
I feel better today, obviously.
It feels
it's
weird
not
doing
100%
this
gone.
at the end of the month.
At the end of the month and at the end of the day. And
I feel like I don't have
I'm
my
behind.
stuff together. Right.
I'm feeling late.
Yes.
I'm late for a very important day.
All right. So we have this is adorable.
I am so
I hope
excited.
it stitches out as cute as it looks.
I really want one of these for myself, and I haven't done it for myself yet either.
Yeah.
I've been, a little occupied.
Right. I don't think I want it as a pillow, but I think this would be like we were talking about yesterday, adorable
For a little wall
hanging. Yeah, I think it would hang on like one of those little clips. Really cute. I have a lot of skinny spaces in my house that
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't have much space left anywhere in my
No.
house. Not much. But I have a kitchen island that when it's not covered with crap, which
It's a kitchen island.
unfortunately it gets covered. I uncover it and then I turn around and wait a minute, what just happened? It's covered again.
Covered again.
But yeah, so I would like to do an Applique that I can just
hang. Yeah.
it just have different things right there. I think that would be a great place because then when I walk in, I see it and it would just look at that. Isn't that cute? I think that would be a great place.
In our old house, we had a kitchen island, and I always, like you, felt like the island was always covered with stuff. So on the back side of the island, which is what you would see when you came in, I used those little command hooks back there, and I created like a little banner that was like a bunch of little cutesy stuff that I would just change out. But I liked coming in and seeing that there because it was really cute.
That's where our trash can is.
Yeah,
right there.
Ours is in a drawer, but that was
we don't have the drawer trash can.
Was really fun. So it was nice to be able to do something like that. But yeah, I have a hard time. It is hard. There's one space that would be really cute for that, but it does get filled quickly.
It doesn't take any time at all. It's like a constant mess of let's clean that up.
Right.
And yeah. So let's do I don't know what to start.
All right.
We
so
didn't do that yet.
We didn't really even know we're not together at all. So
but we're excited to be here.
We are. That's what counts,
we both
right?
feel a little better today, so we might have a little more energy.
Yes. So hold up the little picture of the candy.
This is what we are doing today. So this is our Peppermint Avenue. And so we are going to be working with lots of different product. We are going to have some leather. We are going to have some felt. We are going to have velveteen. We've got some glitter. I lost the glitter. Oh, there's the glitter. We're going to have just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And hi, Mom. So we've got lots of fun things that we're going to work with. So we will talk about, some ways to maybe manage those different types. You know what else we don't have?
What do we have?
My favorite scissors. Do we have them?
No.
Yeah, we'll find them. Oh, there's some right there. I'll go grab them in just a second. So lots of fun little things. I feel like I'm also a little crooked, but it won't matter. There's plenty of fabric there.
Okay. So step one. Pull the embroidery design in your machine.
Ding, ding, ding. So first of all, you need to pull that up. It's super cute, even all by itself. Nothing there. It's a really cute design.
It is a very cute
So
design.
we're going to pull that in, and there's
to do a little prep work on your fabric after
that.
Yep.
So we've got the design off of your computer onto USB into the machine. Step one. Step two, you need no show mesh. So a lightweight cutaway. If you don't have any mesh, okay, but a lightweight cutaway. You don't want anything super heavy because it's just going to make the cover be stiff, and it's not going to go. It's going to be a lot harder to turn, and it's going to be a lot stiffer. So you want it to kind of flow a little bit better there. So
we don't want this one stiff.
No. not this time, not today, or at least not right now today. So, lightweight cutaway. So a no-show mesh does not need to be fusible, but if that's all you have, that's okay too. So once you have that, that's going to be in that 5x7 hoop, or the equivalent for whatever your machine happens to be.
Right, or whatever hoop you have. That is
Right.
bigger
If
than
you
a
don't
5x7.
have one, then the next bigger one that you do have. And then we have 2 pieces of fabric that you need to fuse the backing on. So
did you use 2 different color markers?
So here's what happened.
I feel like there's a story there.
There may be a little one. Carolyn's like, here, let me help you. And she grabbed a yellow pen.
Oh.
And she drew a line. I'm like, that's really great. Can't see it.
Mm.
And then you guys wouldn't have been able to see it either. So I'm like, we need to get something that you guys can see. So I grabbed a pink one. And you know what pink and yellow make?
Mm-hmm.
That.
Mm-hmm.
So I drew right over top of the yellow line. And that is why we have an orange line and a pink line. So you guys can see what I did. Because at that point, then I was helping. I wasn't just kidding. But Carolyn helped. And so we have a line, a crosshair through the center of our background fabric, which in this case, if you got our kit, we have the white with the tiny white polka dots as the background fabric. And you are going to want to do the fusible backing on that so that you have a nice solid, not wimpy.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a nice solid white. So,
So
mark
I just wanted to let them know we're using the Baby Lock no-show mesh.
Mhm.
That's our favorite no-show mesh. And then we're using the Easy T fusible backing. And then several different colors of markers.
Evidently. And oddly enough, one of the colors I used is not what you're seeing there.
One of these
So this one actually has 2 lines, one right on top of the other, which changed the color. Because when you blend,
Mhm.
they it's just like when you dump 2 colors of paint together or
Yeah.
whatever, that's what happens. So
1700s.
we
have
have
some.
1700s.
Mhm.
We have we've tried reaching. We're going through the stack, so there's receipts on the front counter, right to the right of the credit card machine. You can look at that.
It's probably just sitting there. I'll go. I'll be right
Okay,
back.
so the fusibles. So we're going to hoop the no-show mesh, and then we are going to, which you can see the no-show mesh is down there, and we are going to put that fusible on the back of your background fabric, which is going to be, again, that white with the light, tiny little white polka dots on there. And then you're going to mark center. I did mark all the way across so that it's very easy to see center, because we're not hooping this fabric. We're just going to float it. You could certainly hoop it if you would like to, but we want to use our hoop markings to get that in the center of the hoop. This is going to be cut down. We're not going to finish this pillow in the hoop. We are going to cut this down and then sew the finishing pieces together at the end. So the main portion, the white, is going to be all embroidered, and then we will sew the velveteen pieces on after we've done that embroidery. So the second piece that we want to put that fusible backing on is going to be your square of this awning striped red. And so you do want to do the fusible on there. What you really need to make sure that you're getting is from corner to corner, you want to make sure that you have that. If you don't have it on all 4 corners, you can see I have just a little bit missing because of the size piece that I had. I made sure that I have 1 because we're actually going to use this as a diamond. So it's going to be our pole in the center, and it looks like that peppermint stripe. So that spinning, we don't want to put it straight because then we won't get that nice stripe down the pole. So make sure that you have a nice fusible backing from at least 1 corner to that opposite corner of that fusible. So make sure that you have that, and that's going to be the first piece that we put in there. So those are your prep pieces. If you did buy our kit, find it, and we found it. Yay! So that's about as far as I got in the instructions. How far did you get? So we're going to be doing some piecing and getting all of the different pieces there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to put the red in so that you guys can see the stitches, because the white will blend so much you won't see.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 8 different threads in my little repertoire of threads. So if you are like, okay, well, what do I need to find? I've got a light brown that's going to match our brown felt. I have red. I have our robin egg blue, which is that favorite. We love that Kimberbell little teal blue that we use there all the time. I have a standard white, and I do, of course, have standard black. I have green that's going to coordinate with the green pistachio felt. I have pink, and I also have an orange, which is going to be for the little birdie's beak. So you can, of course, get your own shadings of any of those, but you're going to want those 8 shades. So if you're just trying to sew along, please rummage through your drawers real quick and try to pull out those colors if you haven't already. So you will need those threads to get us going. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and start with threading in that red thread so that you guys can see that thread path. You're just going to need a standard embroidery bobbin in your machine. You don't need a color. And I'm going to put that 5x7 hoop right in there. And again, we do have the design already pulled up. And we're going to go ahead and stitch color number 1. There is, again, no crosshair that we're stitching. We're not using a sticky. We're just floating our background fabric. And I do have that taped down for your guys' benefit. Because, you know, I would never do that at home.
And if you were concerned or you didn't have tape, a lot of you have basting,
You
a basting frame
absolutely
built
could base
into your
this down.
machine.
Absolutely. And we can actually throw that on here if you guys would like to see that. So you would hit your layout or editing button on your final screen. And then if you have a brother or baby lock machine, it is the flower with a rectangle of dotted lines around it. And it's going to automatically throw that basting stitch around there. Depending upon the setting that you have on your machine is going to be how close it will be to the design. But it's a super exaggerated stitch. And we've gone ahead and added that. So that's what's going to stitch first. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give me a very large rectangle. So if you're concerned about your fabric moving, especially if you don't have any tape, you can see how large of a stitch that's creating. So that makes it super easy to take out. So we don't have to worry about that lovely Kimberbell basting stitch, which were almost like regular sewing stitches.
Yeah, this is a great way because the best way to get a good solid flat stitch out is to make sure that all of your layers
nothing
stay
is going
together.
to be moving
No
around.
shifting.
Absolutely. So we now have a basting stitch that's there, and as you saw, it made that the first color stop. So we don't have to move up and down throughout our design. When you add in a basting stitch, it automatically makes that color stop number 1. I would just like to note that if we say color stop number something or other, we're going to now be 1 color stop off of everybody else. So just as a note, if I say, hey, we're on color something or other, I might not match up with yours.
Because we
added that basting stitch. So I don't want to confuse anybody later on. If I happen to mention that, I will try not to say that so that I don't confuse anybody, but just in case. So the first thing that we're going to do from the actual design is going to be the placement line for that adorable barber's pole right down the center there. So we have the fused fabric that we're going to put there. Make sure when you place this, it's only going to fit if you put it out on diagonal, but make sure that you do that because otherwise you're going to end up with just a straight line. And that's no fun. We really want to get that diagonal look in there. So again, we need to make sure that we're putting that on the diagonal, not straight. So again, I have cheated just a little bit because of what I had available to me on my fusible. So I want to make sure that I'm getting my fused corners to be used on there. So I am just going to line that up. So I'm completely covering up that line. Double check one more time. And we're going to tack that down. Now, of course, you guys all know you can use tape if you would like to, but you know, I'm not going to. So we're going to tack that down. And while that's doing that, I'm going to go grab my scissors.
That really messes with the eyeballs.
It kind of does, doesn't it? It's fun when we're actually having to cut some of those fabrics. It's like, oh man. All right, so we do need to go ahead and trim off that excess because we're going to start layering things on top of that pole. So here's my directions. I don't know how well you guys can see that. So we need to make sure that we remove that excess because we're going to start layering everything right on top of that pole. Make sure that you get a nice clean stitch. You do have a decorative stitch that's going to come on over here, but it's not a heavy satin stitch. So make sure that you get nice and tight in there.
Oh, look, somebody from Spam is calling me.
Spam? Are you
Potential
hungry?
spam.
You want some spam ham? No?
No,
Have you ever actually eaten spam?
I have.
I don't know if I have or not.
I was much younger, but I have had spam.
I don't actually know if I have. Whenever I think of spam, I think of 51st Days
Mm-hmm.
and the brother with the lisp. And his spam. He wants his spam. All right. All right, so we've got that nice and trimmed. We're going to go ahead and put that back in the machine. And the first color is actually going to be the red leather. So we can go ahead and leave that red right in the machine. So
It's gonna do the.
oh yeah,
face.
the decorative stitch. I knew that. I said that already once. I just jumped ahead.
Yeah, you're moving along.
I moved it.
You already skipped.
You think I had my Adderall or something today? I can't tell you. Like the headache lifted, and I feel so much better. It's crazy. So, like I said, this isn't a heavy satin stitch,
No.
and it's leaving gaps for the
Leather.
different arrows that are going to point the ways to the different rows that we're going to go down on Peppermint Lane.
This is telling you where to go.
It does tell you where to go.
But not how fast to get there. But yeah, it is a pretty wimpy satin stitch on the end there, isn't it?
Yepper. I was like, that needle's not in the right position. What am I missing? All right, so now we're gonna head up there to that first arrow position.
It's because it's a star.
Yeah. I said it wasn't a heavy satin stitch.
It's not a satin stitch
It's
at all.
not.
It's a decorative stitch. I'm like, that is the crappiest looking
That's not a
stitch
satin
I've ever
stitch at all,
seen.
guys.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, it's not.
Like a little candle wicking. It's like a flat candle wicking stitch.
It is exactly that. So this is going to be the placement line for our red leather. It's this stuff. And we're going to just, it's quite large. Look at that.
Is it bigger than you thought?
Yeah.
That'll be much easier to cut. Because I know how much you like cutting leather.
Oh, so very much. I don't mind it, except I prefer the stuff that the color on the back matches the color on the front. All right, so we're going to completely cover that up. For any of you who are nervous about having your hands by the needle, you would want to have that tape down. I'm just going to hold that down as it comes around because I find that easier than taping. But that does not mean that you can't tape. And you certainly, if you chose to, could have a thread that popped more if you wanted to. I chose matching colors versus
You could do
hello
black or-
colors.
Yeah,
if
white
you will.
if you wanted it to be
So
a little more
there's
poppy.
going to be a font that's stitched on all of these. So I want the font to be what pops. That was just my choice. But like I said, if you wanted it to be white, here, that would be what you would want to stitch there, because that's going to be that final stitch that you see. So whatever color you're tacking down with is going to be what's going to show in the final pillow.
And the next arrow is the next version. So what color is?
So the next one is going to be our felt, which is the pistachio.
Okay,
so she's going to go ahead and swap that for the green thread while I am trimming this leather.
Can I have the green thread instead of the felt? Thank you.
She's so picky, so demanding. See that? All right.
I'm sorry.
So we're going to give that hopefully as nice, clean cuts as we can. We don't want jagged edges, because what we see is what we get when it comes to this beautiful leather. A little fuzz ball in there. I was like, what just happened? I like to give it a little bit of a fold before I cut, because it kind of stands up straighter for me. And it gives me a little bit better angle, if you will. When you are working on little angles, sometimes those microchips work a little better. I don't have them with me today either, so we're just going to go with what we've got. These little angles here are going to be the snow caps. That works just fine. Turning my directions too. How about we move those out of the way? All right, so there we have the leather all trimmed. So we have that first piece, and we're gonna do the placement line for the felt. And Sarah's got us with green thread. You want to swap?
Out of practice.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And of course, we're gonna go the other direction now. So we're gonna point to the left. We're going to completely cover up that placement line and go ahead and tack that adorable green. I actually really like that green felt.
It is really cute.
And we're going to tack that down. Sarah, don't you want tape?
No.
No? Imagine that. I'm not sure who wears off on who around here, but
We like to live on the edge.
absolutely. And I am going to go ahead and trim off that excess. Our next arrow is going to be the pink leather.
It's like
See, there's
bubblegum pink.
a little bit of a theme going on here. We have leather, felt, leather. Hello, Caitlin. I almost texted her and said, I'm going live. But I thought, no. All right. So again, we're going to trim and, try to keep a fairly consistent amount of edge, for lack of a better word, on there. The felt is a little bit easier to go back and balance out. It's a little bit more forgiving than the leather. You don't have that sharp edge that you have with the leather. So you've got a little bit more. Yeah, I don't really like how that looked. I can go back and play with it a little bit more. Where that leather, you certainly can, but the best appearance is always going to be that first cut on your leathers. Excess pieces keep hopping around the hoop. All right, so we've got 2 done. We're going to go ahead and move down to the third, which is going to again be that pink. Bubblegum. Bubblegum, bubblegum. What is that? Something, some kid's song, something or other like that. But I don't know what it is.
got one of those like little hand drive ones.
Bubble gum in the something. I don't remember. But yeah, it quite possibly could be. I can do the hand jive. Hand jive.
Yeah.
I got that, but that darn bubble gum one's eluding me.
All right. Pink leather. We have one more to go.
And the last one is going to be the brown arrow. And then we will, I'm guessing, travel up and do that cute little bird, or maybe the snow might be next, because I think the bird sits on top of the snow. So here we go. We've got edge over here. Need some micro scissors to get in there. That tiny little point there in that curve. All right. What are you snickering about?
My watch just told me we're live on YouTube. You should watch SnL. They're live.
Great advice. You guys should totally follow that advice. Watches are fun. I think I'm trimming off all of my basting stitches because they're in my way. But that's okay. I'll come back and fuss with that in a minute. All right. So we have a adorable.
Yes. No.
We've got that adorable pink there. So now we're going to get the placement line for the brown.
Got a little red fuzz on there. I feel like that velveteen is everywhere.
It is everywhere. I'm not wrong there.
I'm glad they changed that packaging though. The velveteen.
Yeah. All right. So that is the last of the arrows. I need to trim that, and then we're going to move on to the white snow, which is our glitter fabric. So I just need to take off excess here. Something sticky on these scissors.
I told Tony not to use them on the pizza.
Yeah, that cheese likes to stick, don't they?
It does. He would never admit it though.
No, definitely not. All right. So you guys can see we have little divots in these three areas that the placement line will go. And then there'll also be some down across the bottom. So we have changed to white thread. It'll be a little bit harder for you guys to see the stitch lines. But again, we want the access to be the actual glitter itself, not the thread. So we're gonna blend. That'll be hard to get out.
Probably should have pushed that out a little further.
I had no idea it was on 0. That's a very strange number for that to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody must have asked, how can we do that? And we showed them. So this is, if you have our kit, it is a white glitter that has a little bit of a rainbow hue to it.
So the snow will glisten.
So it's going to be glistening snow. Now we are over, for those of you who have been in the shop, nowhere near an iron at the moment. So I'm not going to fuse this down, but we'll tell you when you should actually do that. I am removing the red so that it's not stuck underneath our glitter, because I want to make sure that I don't have this weird red line later on. So for whatever reason, and I'm not 100% sure what that reasoning is, our basting stitch was set to a 0 distance from the design. So it's literally right, as you can see on those edges, which is fine. But it's literally like right at, and I don't want it underneath there. So I'm just pulling those out. Normally I wouldn't do that, but just to make sure it doesn't show there. So we're gonna, again, cover this up completely and make sure that we have no area outside of those placement lines for that glitter. You have a huge piece of this. You certainly could save a little bit. I should really watch what I'm doing. You can absolutely save these middle chunks, because there's going to be a huge chunk in the middle. Put that in your scraps bin, because you can absolutely use this somewhere else. I actually don't generally fuse white when I'm using it for snow, because it looks like tuft snow. So it looks like glittering tuft snow if you don't fuse it and you have this beautiful stuff here. So it'll give it a little bit of a poofy look. And I think that looks beautiful as snow. So I wouldn't fuse it personally anyway, but I will tell you when you should fuse it, just in case you would like to.
The thing about it is, if you don't fuse it when you actually should fuse it, fusing it later, it is bad.
It's bad, right? And if it's something that's going to be washed a lot and you pierce it a lot, it could possibly fall out later on. It depends on how it's being used. So there's pros and cons, but it would be a design choice to not fuse it. I don't recommend forgetting, quote unquote, that step. You know, if you specifically choose not to do it, that's one thing. But it's, you know, this is not fabric, so it's got that plastic backing. And if you pierce it, as we do with the needle, and you have that pierced so much and you wash it, that is going to get brittle over time.
Mm-hmm.
And it could start to tear, and it actually could come out if it's not permanently fused. Which problem?
They're the legs.
Yep.
I'm like, why is there a quotation mark on the screen?
So I'm going to go ahead and
Brown legs?
I think that's probably best
Or
for what we've
we
got.
might have dark. Do you want darker?
I think those are fine.
These are fine. Okay.
All right. So again, I'm going to go ahead and remove the glitter excess, and I'm, you know, like I said, I would try to save what you can, because there's a huge chunk in that center that you could use for another project if you would like. So why not, right? I guess what I'm saying is don't like slice. Don't
slice and dice.
Don't slice and dice right out of the middle, because then you would ruin your large piece of excess. And be very careful because there's going to be, you know, raised embellishments around that. Try to make sure that you're not cutting into that. I can feel it with my scissors. So be really careful as you're turning those corners that you don't cut into whatever is underneath. So if the felt here or the leather over here, you might want to change the direction that you're cutting so that you're cutting with the direction of it instead of cutting into it. Kind of cut on top of it. So once I have this all removed, what I would want to do is use a pressing cloth and cover my glittered areas. You also want to make sure that you are covering up any leather. So even though the pink doesn't have any glitter over it, you still would want to make sure that you don't have any portion of your iron when you go to fuse hitting the top of that leather. You will mar the coloring of the leather, and you don't want to do that. It'll give it a little bit of a melted look, and that's no good. Don't ask me how I know that.
Unless you're going for that Wicked Witch of the West and melting look.
Yeah, no, I actually, I've had it actually heat through my pressing cloth to where it like looked moist, but I've never actually melted it. But I was like, well, that's obviously why you don't want to hit it with your
actual iron,
because that would just go right away and not look good at all. So once we have all of the excess trimmed, you would need a mini iron for something that's in the hoop like this. So if you plan to do things that have fusibles like this in the hoop, whether it be the glitter or applique with fusibles that you're doing in the hoop, those mini irons are phenomenal. And guess what?
We have those.
We have those. So here's that very large piece of excess. I'm going to set that aside. That is a great scrap to put in your bin. And you can go through and make sure you don't have any sharp edges if you had some, those kinds of things, and clean that up if you are worried about it. But that's what you are looking for, is to get the snow tufts and get rid of all of that excess. So at this point, you would take your mini iron, cover it with your press cloth, not a piece of paper, and press so that all of your glitter pieces are permanently fused in place. And then move on to the next step, which in our case is going to be the cute little birdie's legs. Mm-hmm. So again, get your little mini irons and go press at this point.
Yep. There, the link is posted in the comments section, just for the mini iron in case anybody needs it.
Yep. Okay, so here we are. We currently have the same brown here. They're just, like she said, they look like quotation marks. There's just two little legs that are going to go right up here. Legs. I'm sorry?
I said two teeny tiny legs.
Two tiny, yeah, bird legs is a coined phrase for a reason. Right. So two little guys there. And then we are going to have the placement line for our Robin's Egg Blue, which is, of course, our beautiful favorite 903 that we use all the time. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get that brown out of the way and go ahead and thread with our Robin's Egg Blue.
You got it? I do. Okay. So I'm going to put your favorite scissors in the link just in case there's anybody else that doesn't already know that those are your favorites.
It's possible there's people that watch us that don't already have those.
Possible.
All right, so right here we're going to do that little bird's body, and it's going to be the placement line for where we put our Robin's Egg Blue. Okay, there's, oh my gosh, I'm
Nat.
there's
Yeah.
a little, okay, I thought it was a floater.
No, this one's real.
All right, so there we have that outline. We're again going to completely cover that up and tack that in place. Yep. I think he might be more annoying than the big one. Did you hear I killed the big one?
I did not.
with my hands. I got to text Jean.
You do.
Yes, I killed a fly with my bare hands.
That is great.
It was really annoying me.
He was very, very annoying. He was.
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim off that excess, and then we will decorate him a little bit.
Okay. Same color? It's his hat. Are we gonna do his hat
Is
in
it
red?
the hat next?
Yes.
Okay, because there's wing stitches that I just assumed they would, why would you bother to
Right?
do that at the same time? But yes, the hat. You're supposed to be red for that?
Mm-hmm. Same red? Of that leather?
Well, we got more of that. Sure, we'll go with this. I'm sure that'll work.
It shows definitely an outline.
Well, I've got a pile of mess over here, so it's very possible I've knocked it on the floor or something. We do that sometimes over here.
We do occasionally.
Make messes. Alrighty, so a little curve going around here. And again, when you come back around, make sure that you're real careful that your scissors aren't cutting into any of that other embellishment. There's quite a bit of loft in some of this embellishment that's on the top here. The bird, you've got a little bit of distance there, but when you're cutting off that, those glitters, I could really feel the felt and the leather underneath my scissors. So just be real careful that you're not getting into. It's definitely, yeah. Okay, so we're now going to do a placement line for a hat. Hat topping, covering the placement line. Doesn't say leather though.
It looks like cover up.
What did you leather?
It's filling. Why don't we just let it stitch?
Is it going to fill it?
Yeah, there's a fill stitch after that. So I think that
It's probably because of the edge of the
leather. Yeah.
All right, let's just rock and roll. That makes sense though.
Mm-hmm.
So if it doesn't cover, we're going to back up and we're going to stitch it again.
Yep.
So this is now doing the fill stitch. Embroidery topping is a stabilizer, which we don't ever include, which is why it's not in your kit. So what it's doing is a fill stitch, and it's calling for red embroidery topping. If it doesn't completely cover because of the edge of the leather, we'll just go over that little section again. Give a little extra, but it's looking like it's going to do just fine.
Yeah. It actually almost just looks like there's like a little line, but it's covering it really well.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
not
think
necessary on ours anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that filled
Definitely,
that well.
it did. It looks beautiful. Okay,
Now,
so now there's a decorative stitch that goes over top of that too. Outline.
outline, same
Do
color,
we want,
or do we want like a black or a blue or?
let's just go the same color.
Okay.
We're gonna do the same color. Okay.
What color are we gonna do as pom pom? Blue or
I
pink?
was gonna do pink.
Okay.
I figured you wanted to do pink. I didn't know you were gonna give me a choice to not. Okay, so now we have his wing, which should match the rest of his body. So we're gonna go back to our beautiful robin's egg blue thread. I don't understand why they didn't do the same colors.
I don't either. That is a They didn't ask us.
They didn't. Why don't people ask us these things?
I don't.
All right, so we need to put that thread back. Do you want me to do that?
If you're watching, we could have done this before.
I thought maybe something was going to get covered up, but it's not. All right, so again, we're going to do the decorative side wing here. So it's going to do a little decorative stitch right on that leather.
In our favorite color, and I did put that in the comments.
The ES 903.
Yeah, just in case.
Just in case anybody wanted to know.
You don't have that already.
It is a fantastic Kimberbell color. If you don't have that and you do Kimberbell projects, you totally need it. It goes in like everything.
Yeah, it does. It matches a lot of the greens and the blues. Just kind of a blendy blend.
So next we've got his cute little beak. And we're going to do that in a nice golden orange. Teamwork. All right, so cute little beak off the side, and then we got a nose. So this next thing is where I'm curious. Outside, not the next thing. The words. That's what I'm curious about.
Now the eye.
Yeah, the words are what I'm curious about.
Okay.
So we got this little beady eye. That's a good choice. Nice and bright. What's gonna work? Teamwork. That would be Wonder Pets. Because who doesn't know the Wonder Pets? Why do I know the Wonder Pets? Why do I still know the Wonder Pets? That's a better question. Okay,
Now the
so
top of the
we
hat.
now have the little palm on the top of his hat. We got just a little tail on his eyeball. I gotta get rid of that. So this is actually, it appears to be a fringe.
It's going to be
piece.
a tiny fringe.
So they do recommend that you change your bobbin thread to a alternate color, which basically is going to help you trim out those bobbin threads so you can actually fringe it. It definitely makes a difference when you are going back to, especially if you're a non-seasoned fringer.
Do you want
I'm good.
Okay.
I feel seasoned.
You're seasoned?
I feel seasoned, well seasoned today. So we're just going to go ahead and rock and roll on this. But especially if you are not someone who fringes things often, or if you have no idea why I would say that, you need to change your bobbin color. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to do this stitch, and then it's very, very large satin stitches. And then what happens is there's a tiny little satin stitch on one edge of those that holds them in place. And then you cut the bobbin threads from underneath the large satin stitch, and it will create a fringe. The side with the tiny little satin stitch holds down that edge of those big loops, and you get these big loopies, and that's what makes your fringe. And it's much easier to find your satin stitch bobbin thread if it's a different color. So that's where that comes from.
Easier so that you don't accidentally
it's just a viewing thing. So we now have, we're now to the words. So the words can be whatever colors that you would like. We are literally on Candy Cane Lane, which is the top. It's going to go right on that red leather. So we have white thread in. We do have white bobbin thread. Depending upon, you know, what you're stitching, sometimes you will want to change your bobbin thread to coordinate with whatever your top thread is, because that bobbin thread can sometimes pull up in these tiny little letters.
Sandy asked, can you use washaway thread?
So the way that this particular, in some fringe patterns, the answer to that would be yes, and that is absolutely a fringing technique. This particular pattern is very, very small, and they did not separate out the large satin stitch with the tack down that's not coming out. So there's no break between the two. So unless you sit there with your finger finger on the start stop button and pause and switch between the two, it wouldn't work because you would end up all of the
your
stitches
stitches
would
would
fall
fall
out, not just the ones that you want. So it's a technique, but it has to be digitized for that technique to work, or you really have to be paying attention if you're going to use it and it wasn't specifically digitized for that way to go. I have a water pen at home so that when I want to do that, it's really super easy. You just dip water on your back and boom, everything comes out. However, this is so small, it's almost not worth the effort anyways. But when you have a large fringe project, maybe we should do another fringe project. Yeah. It's been a while since that big old Celtic one. Oh, everybody hated me at the end of that class too. I always pick hard ones.
Tuesday fringe class. That'd be fun.
We could totally do that, just show how it works.
Yeah.
And we could show how to, okay.
Yeah.
We know what we're gonna do next time. Yay. So yeah, we'll show you guys some other ways to do that. It's always good to have an idea. It's the little things in life that make us happy.
Now can we remember?
Yes. Yes, we can. It's only not even a week.
Right.
Yeah. And then we'll have to come up with what we're gonna do when I'm not here because we have to plan that.
Yeah.
So all right. So this is actually stitching out really nice. Very, very legible. Sometimes these little ones are iffy. So this is really, really nice. We'll see how it continues.
Hokey.
It's not super fast. You are not wrong. But everything, I'm not going to. I'm going to stop speaking now. And so, Bubble Girl, you're really welcome.
Yes.
I'm glad you're enjoying it and that you find it helpful. That's the whole point.
Yes.
So I'm glad it's working.
Yes. It's always nice when someone
Right.
is like, yeah, this is good.
So a couple of little, there's a jump stitch in there we got to trim, and there's one little tail that needs to come away. But we're going to just leave that alone.
Are we going to stay white or are we changing?
We are going to change. So reindeer petting zoo, and I thought black for that one.
Okay.
Do we have a black bobbin over here? Because I bet that will come out better that way.
No, we do not.
Okay, well, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes.
I have red and teal.
There might be one in that orange bag.
Orange bag?
It's possible.
Here, little bobbin.
It's like bottomless pits those bags can be.
No, but I found the tack.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's all right. We'll
found
just
an orange bobbin.
Oh, there should be a gray or whatever, but that's okay. That's all right. We'll just wing it.
Okay,
We'll wing it. So we're going to go ahead and leave the white bobbin in there. This is a really thin running stitch, so it is possible you might see a little bit of white, and we'll let you know, and then you'll know for yours. How about that? So here we go. I like the color name for the next one.
Are there extras?
Yeah, in the box underneath the computer table, there's a box over there. And the pillows, if they're not over there, they're on the wall. So far, so good.
Knocking on wood, knocked it out.
Right? Ah, dang. So we got Foxy Red coming up next. So I have found that sometimes when you are on leather or felt, these don't work as well.
Yeah.
It likes to have a mind of its own, which is where my concern was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But it's looking great. So even though it's a really thin stitch, it's looking nice and bold. And
I think it helps that we have the
fusible
the
underneath.
fusible underneath. And you also did a little bit of starch, so it's a little bit stiffer. So
Yep.
it has a little bit more that it would have to pull up through.
Yep.
The worst part about this will be trimming those little jump stitches between.
Without trimming the product
Actual
or
stitch.
scratching the leather or
Yeah.
any of those things. So what we're mumbling back here, sorry, is, you know, there's little jump stitches between these letters, which will be difficult because, of course, it's really easy to catch the felt. And it's actually not too difficult to scratch the leather and have your scissor line actually show. So be very careful when you're trimming so that that's not going to happen to you.
Barb wants to know if you can use the 60 weight Floriani on the lettering.
Sure.
You, again, if you are using a lighter weight thread, you may need to match in your bobbin, the color.
It's certainly one of those things that's what they recommend that lighter weight for these tinier letters. So it very well
could be fine.
Could be great. you just never know. I am very pleasantly surprised with how well the standard came out.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes little letters can be a crapshoot. So these came out very, very well. And of course, you know, there's many 60 weight threads out there. So you could certainly give that a go. I definitely use that on some things. I have found that sometimes when you have on an embellishment, that thinner weight thread sinks in and you can't see it at all.
I just completely understood it. That did not
That
work
was
out
very
to
helpful.
my
Yep. So those exactly what we were talking about. Sometimes, and unfortunately, you don't know until you go to do it what's going to happen, and it's really difficult to go back and try to fix it. When you go back and try to fix it, especially on the leather when there's already needle punctures, and you can't rip out those stitches without ruining whatever you got going on. And of course, the bobbin stitches on the back are so tiny.
Yep.
It takes a magician to get them out.
Yeah.
You know, a topper is not going to help, unfortunately. You know, that's just more to pick out later. And
Mary asked, what material did you use for the bird's head? It's just thread.
It's just thread.
Kimberbell recommends that you know, they have their toppers, which are basically color
Sheets
blocks.
of color block.
They recommended that you use that over top of it. We think probably to make sure that it covered up the rim, but we didn't use anything.
Yeah, we figured since we didn't have any here, you know, we don't include stabilizers, and that would be considered a stabilizer. So that's why it's not in our kits either, which is what we've got sitting in front of us. That if it didn't cover the brim, we could jump stitch until we got to that brim section and just stitch it a second time to cover up that edge if we needed it.
But we didn't.
But it wasn't needed. It came out absolutely beautiful. Sorry, I didn't think they could hear us.
Yeah.
We were starting to talk a little louder.
My chauffeur has arrived. Right on time, 3:59.
Yeah, I see that. All right, a couple more letters on this, and then we switch to white for that last one.
Okay, and what color do we want the hot cocoa to be?
White.
White. It's so much harder to do it that way, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Okay.
I did not do white.
Oh, that is definitely not white.
I'm not sure what I was thinking. But
that looks cute. Adorable. Let's go with it.
It's not even close.
Not white, guys. Not even close. I have it over here.
Yeah.
It's hard to get good help, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. There's a white top. Oh.
Hot chocolate. Did you like the Polar Express?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think of when I see hot chocolate. Did a tap dance to that song.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to demonstrate for us?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. I can still remember most of it. We had quite of us that were quite a bit older, and then we had many that were quite a bit younger. Those of us that were quite a bit older flipped back tucks for the little ones. We flipped them, so they all did little back tucks over our arms halfway in the middle. All right, so we have completed all of the embroidery. So what do we do now? Right?
Right.
So we are going to need to cut, and then we are going to need to sew. So let's talk about cutting. The cutting instructions are pretty straightforward. It gives you a base size of what you're going to need to end up with. So if you have orange pop rulers, you are going to remove this from the hoop, and you're going to cut that to the 6.5 by 8.5 orange pop ruler. What we actually want to end up with is the 6.5 by 8. So once you have that, we're going to then trim off a 1/4 inch off of each side, and that's going to give us that narrow but yet tall to fit our really nice pillow blank. So we are again going to end up with a 6.5 by 8 piece here. So of course I need to remove this from the hoop, set the hoop out, and then I need to go ahead and trim. Before I can do any sewing, I of course need to pull out my basting stitch. So you can see how easy this stitch comes out. That is why I love the built-in basting stitch. It is just so easy, but yet it does a really, really great job of sandwiching all of my layers together so that I don't have to worry about movement. So you can see how nice all of those letters came out, and we really, you know, it can be kind of a hit or miss, but these really came out beautiful. They did a really nice job on this. So this is going to have to get trimmed. So let's now talk about the velveteen, because that's what we have left. We have,
I think it might be easier for
4
them
pieces of velveteen.
See that underneath that camera.
All right. So if you got your kit from us, we didn't give you one large piece that you then had to cut down. We actually gave you the 4 pieces. So Sarah and I have done just a little bit of prep prior to, because of how the machines are laid out in the store, and just to try to shorten the time that we're here. So if you have been watching Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, you may have seen some people saying that their velveteen is ripping when they go to sew this together and then turn it for when they're putting that pillow in there and trying to actually get the pillow in, their seam is actually coming out. So what we have done is actually serged our edges so that we won't have that happen, so that we're preventing those edges from having any more of our lovely shedding everywhere too. So we're having less less of a mess to work with. So we literally just have a very simple 4 thread. You could use a 3 thread, but that extra seam in there is going to give us one more seam to prevent any of that fuzz from coming off. So we have that done on all of those sides. On the pieces that are the actual back, so these are going to be the top and the bottom. So once we have this trimmed down to the appropriate widths, like yay, these are going to get sewn and then flipped to sit at the top and the bottom. So these are the front pieces here, okay? These are your backing pieces. So the 2 larger pieces are going to be your back. You're going to need to turn over and top stitch so that you have a nice edge. And I did that for us before we got over here. So we have that portion done. That side you can certainly serge if you would like, but it does have that top stitch, so it doesn't have to be prepped if you don't want it to. And again, this is just an option. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. And of course, half of you are out there going, I don't have a serger, so now what do I do? So we're going to switch back over to Miss Sarah. You see that I only have 3 sides of this last piece prepped. And Sarah's going to show you, and I'm going to get out of the way because I'm totally in her sewing space. And she's going to show you what you can do if you, switch the camera though.
Yeah.
What you can do if you do not have a serger. So pretty much every machine that we have here has this ability. Mm-hmm. So again, we have 3 sides done. 2 are serged. 1 has that top stitching side folded down.
So you have a couple of different options at this point. Most of the sewing machines do come with a stitch called a mock serger stitch. So you could certainly select that particular stitch on your sewing machine, or you could do a zigzag stitch and then a straight stitch over top of the edge. The advantage of the mock serger stitch, I didn't actually bring that foot over, but if you were to flip that particular foot over, what you would find is there is a little bit of, so the bottom of the foot, so this is smooth. The bottom of the foot that allows you to do the serging has like a little bar, and it extends just beyond where your needle opening is. And what that does is it holds the stitches flat so that you can, so the fabric doesn't unravel. So almost every sewing machine manufacturer has a mock serger stitch and an overcasting foot with their machine. And if you look into the little manual part of your instruction manual, you will find that particular stitch. It is not going to be the same stitch on, it's not going to be the same stitch on any 2 machines. So I'm not even gonna, I'm not gonna give you, right, I'm not gonna give you the stitch. So like I said, you won't find it by me giving it to you unless you have this very particular machine, because it's just in a different space in everybody's machine. But if all else fails and you cannot find that particular stitch, you could start with a zigzag stitch. And so I will select a zigzag stitch on here, and just a very basic zigzag stitch. I want it to be at least 4 millimeters wide. And on this particular machine, I'm going to move it all the way over to the right. And the reason that I want to do that is because I want to make sure that when I actually do the stitching, that I'm getting very close to the edge. So I want the zag or the zig part of that stitch to be very, very close to the outside edge. So you would probably not pick purple thread to do yours with, but I am picking purple thread on mine so that it'll be a little bit easier for you. Yep. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to make it just a little bit wider. That was a little bit narrow. And I'm moving it all the way over, and I'm going to increase the length a little bit. So I have the thread setting set at 5.0 millimeters. So it's a 5 millimeter wide stitch, and I have my length set at 1.8. And again, I've moved it as far over to the right as I can get it. And I'm running the edge of my fabric on the edge of my foot. Now, when you look at this, you can see how that fabric is kind of shredding? That's basically why we're putting this there. We're putting this stitch here because this is going to actually help hold everything when we go to stitch. Now, what I'm going to do on top of this is I'm going to go back to a regular straight stitch, and I'm going to lay a straight stitch down right along the edge of that. So again, I'm moving the needle all the way over to the right, and I don't want this to be a narrow stitch. So this is like a 3.0 length stitch, and I'm just laying that right along the edge of that stitch. And I'm just doing that, wrong button, because I'm just trying to build up a little extra support in that seam so that when we go to stitch it together, it doesn't pull out on me. So again, the serger is going to give you the most amount of support, but if you don't have that, you're going to select either your mock serger stitch, or you're going to do a zigzag stitch, and then you're going to lay a straight line right on the inside edge of that. And again, what you're doing is you're just supporting the fabric so that when you go to turn it, the stitches do not pop. It's just giving you a little bit of extra security on the outside edge of that.
All right.
Then the last thing that we would need to do is we would need to talk about the yo-yo. So if you do not have a yo-yo maker at home, then getting yourself some template plastic, and I know we have talked about template plastic before. Your local quilt shop probably has some of this if we're not local to you. These sheets are like $1.50 a piece for this big old
At least
piece.
they are here.
So somewhere between like $1 and $3 is probably completely reasonable amount of money to pay for.
And this is,
it's a good size. They make them in heat resistant and non-heat resistant. This is a non-heat resistant, which means you don't want to stick your iron on it. But essentially the pattern has a circle. So I traced the circle onto the template plastic, and I used a Sharpie, which we don't have anywhere near where we're sewing right now.
No, I threw it away.
Right, we didn't want to mark our fabrics with it by accident. And then I trimmed out the circle.
The pattern.
And you can see it doesn't have to be perfect.
It's trimmed.
And so
we just redrew it so that you can see.
Yep. So then basically what we do is we take this and we draw that onto our fabric. So you can kind of see the line on there. All right. And now you have two choices. So I keep hitting the wrong camera button. Sorry, guys. So to make a yo-yo by hand, we can do this a couple of different ways. And Kimberbell gives you instructions on how to do that. So they kind of do it by hand. I don't usually like to do things by hand. But so you can have, what I would do is I would sew about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch away from the line that I drew. And the reason with a large stitch, and the reason I would do that is because once I'm done with that, I can trim off the excess fabric around here. Then I can take my tail thread and my top thread and I can pull, and the fabric will start to draw up around the template plastic. And once it starts to draw up around the template plastic, it's sort of becoming a circle already for me. Then I can pop that out and I can pull it tighter
the rest of the way.
When I don't pull it up around the template plastic, sometimes
it doesn't end up looking circular.
Sometimes it's not circular. It comes out in a weird shape. And so what I don't know, because I haven't actually physically done this one yet, is if my yo-yo is going to end up being a little bit too big because I didn't trim this piece down at the beginning.
Yep.
So
would you start with the larger tail? I would assume.
So the very first thing that I would want to do is I would want to pull up my bobbin thread. So on this particular machine, I'm just going to tap the needle up, needle down button, and I can see the bobbin thread down there. So I'm just going to hold on. And so I have a very long tail thread here. Now, I have regular sewing thread in the top of this, and I have bobbin thread in the bottom of this. Bobbin thread is very lightweight. It's possible when I go to pull on these that it could pop on me. So this may completely fail because I don't have regular sewing thread in there. But
we're only so prepared.
We're only so prepared. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I want to have at least a stitch at like 3.5 millimeters, maybe a little bit longer than that. But you have to be able to go in a curve. So if your stitch is too long, it'll be squared. It'll be really hard to go in a circle. And so then you just have to decide how you want to actually stitch this. So I'm going to move the needle back into the center position. Make sure that, again, my stitch length is about 3.5. And what I am going to do is I'm going to ride the outline of my stitch on the leftmost side of the toe of my foot, which is going to put my stitches about 1/8 of an inch on the outside. This is one of those really good times when turning the pivot feature on is really nice. I'm sorry that my hands are in the way. So I'm going to take a couple of stitches and then I'm just going to pivot because I need to kind of sew in a circle, and sometimes that's hard to do. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect,
because that particular seam is actually going to be in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to actually be seen. It's just got to be close.
Yeah. I'm terrible at sewing circles, so do not look at how bad my circle is. That is definitely going to be a really ugly looking circle. And the next thing that is super important is you do not want to go over top of
where you started.
But I do want this one to be locked in place, because otherwise I'll just yank those stitches right back out. So I'm going to drill stitch that, and then I'm going to cut that one. All right, and this is a really awful looking thing, but I'm going to pop this over top of this. And I'm not going to cut this thread yet, just because I want you guys to see how it's going to draw up, and I think it'll be easier to see that with everything here. So all I'm doing is just pulling around, and then you can see that it's starting to curve. And then I'm just kind of shoving it over. And I'm pulling on my bobbin thread. You could certainly pull on your top thread. This is probably as far as I'm going to get without trimming. But you can kind of see how it's starting to turn. So that's how we're going to get our yo-yo. We're going to just keep doing that. Trim off our excess, get that to be the size that we want, and then we're going to use the button sew on stitch
and
to
tack
actually
it down and keep it in place in the center.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that's does that make sense?
It does. And Kimberbell uses yo-yos actually fairly often. So yeah. This is not, as you can see, super hard. Way better than hand sewing.
Mm-hmm.
However, they do also make a yo-yo maker if you would like to invest in them. They're very easy to use, and even I, who really don't like hand sewing, find them very easy to use because there's literally holes that it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then you put the needle there. And so it's pretty straightforward.
I'm positive I'm going to break this thread. Obviously you can see that I'm trying to be very careful. It's starting
super
to come.
gentle. Do you want to snip those corners at least?
Yeah, I can trim.
So the yo-yos are super cute. They make really great, in this case, candy cane pull heads. But they also make great little flowers or lollipops or lots of different things. So depending upon the fabric that you choose, it can really add quite a bit with just a little piece of fabric and some thread. So they're a very easy embellishment. And I think that's part of the reason that Kimberbell uses them so often is they're super simple, but they really add quite a bit. And they're kind of fun once you get in the groove of them.
And you do have to be careful that you
don't cut your thread.
Don't cut your thread, yeah. Which I did. Oh, here's my bobbin thread. So don't do what I just did.
So you just keep pulling, and then that center will end up pulling everything literally into the center, as you can see. And that makes the 2-inch circle basically just over a 1-inch final circle with all that gathered into the center. Mm-hmm. So very, very straightforward. And again, if you trim off those edges before you get there, then you don't have to, worry about doing what we just did.
Yeah.
So don't do that is the yo-yo, and then that will be tacked on right at the top of the pole in this case.
But you can see it's starting to take its shape. There's your yo-yo, and it's starting to draw in.
You get that cute little pole in the center, which gives that peppermint look.
That's right.
Which is super cute. The last thing that I want to show you guys super quick is how easy it is to do the fringe portions. If you don't mind popping that other camera up.
I do not.
So here we have the little pink tuft that is at the top. On the back, I brought over, I know I did. Wow. I brought over, I could have sworn yep, I did, but I don't know where I lost it. There it is. The bobbin stitches, you can see we have a half circle. Let's see. Yep, I think you can see that. A half circle, and then there's kind of this ball in the center. We need to remove the bobbin stitches from that half circle around there. So you're literally going to take a seam ripper or scissors and go in there and pop all of those bobbin threads from that half circle around the outside. This centerpiece here, you don't want to do anything with. You want to leave that alone because that is going to hold all of those top threads in place that we've now popped the threads for. So very important that you do that. And then when you come over here, you can use either a stiletto, whatever, and you're going to gently pull those threads up. And you can see that we then have a fringed pom. And that's, again, that centerpiece here is holding everything together on this side. And we've released those threads on the top side. So we just have that super simple little fan of a pom at the top of that hat. If you ended up cutting anything, you can literally just take a pair of scissors and trim off. It is very rare that you don't have at least one stray fringed thread. So you just take a little pair of scissors and trim off that little excess. But you can pull that up, and there is your fringe little top. So again, seam ripper or scissors and remove the bobbin threads from that upper portion, and make sure you leave that center portion alone, and then pull those top pieces up, and there is your fringe for that hat. And that is it.
Yes.
And then you're just going to sew all the way around. You're going to have that top pieces, top and the bottom. Mm-hmm. And then once you have the top stitching here, you are going to layer those together and top stitch all the way around, and then turn and insert your pillow.
That's right.
When you go to insert that pillow, if you leave the top piece not folded over, it's a lot easier. And then kind of fold it down. So literally have it only halfway unfolded, get the pillow in, and then roll the pillow up and then flip over the top piece. It's a lot easier. They are very tight. There's not wiggle room in there. So definitely there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. So that's where you're going to cause stress on these side pieces, which is why we're recommending that you prep those before you apply stress to them.
That's right.
Because if they start fraying, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do to it once you have that in there. So.
Yeah, we talked this morning about like putting a fusible backing or something like that on there, and we just think that that's going to
make it harder to actually
more bulk.
That stupid mouse is on my head again.
Oh, it is. Sorry. Right there.
It's all right. So it's just a matter of.
I look like I have a fancy microphone.
Yes, you do. But yeah, so very, very, very cute pillow. I can't wait to make my own.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll change a darn thing.
I think I will not make mine a pillow.
Oh yeah, but I meant the stitching, the colors, the.
But everything else is super duper duper cute.
It is absolutely adorable.
It's gonna go really well with.
But even not making it a pillow, unless you make it larger, because it's not a pillow.
Yeah.
You're still going to be doing the same things.
Yes, you just won't have to push the pillow.
You just don't have to push the pillow.
Right.
Absolutely.
You still have to birth it.
You still got to birth it.
Yes.
So just be gentle as you're turning, because if you could see, we have red everywhere. On us, on the machines, on the prep table.
Clothes that it's like
both have dark, and it's like everywhere on us. So just be prepared, and just be gentle with your Velveteen, because it is a beautiful fabric and it ends beautifully. But it is a little bit delicate, so just be gentle, and you will be very, very happy with the results. So hope you enjoyed it. Sorry we ran a little bit over, and have fun.
Yeah.
So you guys have a great one. Thanks for stopping in, and
some of you might see her in a couple minutes.
Yeah, you just never know. See you guys later.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.